Hello. Okay, I'm not naked. I'm wearing a shirt. I was just thinking about, I don't know why I forgot that ducks could fly, but that's something that's just been amazing me lately. Anyways, I've been thinking a lot about women, or it's whatever term you feel comfortable with. So women, people who have the ability to bear children, vulva babes, I don't know, it's whatever term you feel comfortable with. But I've been thinking a lot about those people, and then I've been thinking about that energy within other creatures on earth, so other animals, and then even earth itself, and just the qualities associated with the divine feminine, because I was watching this documentary. It's called Wild Babies on Netflix, and it was talking about just children in the animal kingdom and things like that, sea creatures and things like that, and what it's like to grow up as a child in that space, not like a human being, like an animal child, a creature, like a baby, whatever. And I was just thinking about the fact that a lot of the parenting is done by the mother, as well as the birthing, a lot of it. I'm not sure. I know that seahorses are one of those few creatures where I think it's actually the male that gives birth, and raises the child, or maybe they're just the one that raises. I don't know. But anyways, the theme that I noticed is that it's a lot of single mothers in the jungle and in those atmospheres, and it's similar to on earth, with human beings. And I was just asking the question, then even looking at Mother Earth and the fact that her energy is feminine and what she must do to take care of, all of us, all of her creatures, all of her children, and herself, and maintain, I don't know what role Earth plays in maintaining the energetic atmosphere of the universe, but yeah. And then I was thinking bigger to darkness, because I had been having these conversations, I guess, with spirit, a few weeks ago. It was in April, and I was kind of unpacking. I just kept going further, and I was talking about darkness and how I think that the divine feminine energy at the highest level, which you could consider akin to spirit, is very overworked, and very I'm doing this on my own, and kind of just pushing through and creating almost to lose track of herself, and to not have to see herself, not have to go inward, not have to confront the complexities of her own darkness and who she is beyond a creator. I think that is the big thing that's happening right now in the spiritual world. And when I think about the universe at large and spirit itself, themselves, and the divine feminine energy within spirit, I think about what it means to not be a creator and to be something more than just that, more than a mother, more than someone always, expanding, something always expanding, something always reincarnating. What does it look like to stop that aspect of the self and to move into a different understanding of what you can be, right? Because we are all manifestations, and manifestation is kind of the rule of existence. And so we've manifested this identity heavily linked to creating, and that being the gift of life is creation and all of these things. And it's something that we are also heavily attached to. We're all creative in our own ways. And then you look at spirit, and they're literally called the creator. And at the highest level, we call upon spirit, we call upon ancestors and spirit guides to help us create. We co-create with the universe, we co-create with Mother Earth. And it's just a lot of work to expand and produce and to go on. And I think that it is it is an avoidance. There's like a lot of fuzzies in the air right now, but there is almost like this understanding that there is no purpose to life and there is no value to you if you are not creating. And that's something that as human beings, I think we're all understanding very deeply in this capitalistic world. In our own little ways, we all understand that very well. I think that artists understand that very well. And honestly, everybody understands that you feel worthless when you're not doing something, when you're not creating something, when you're not a part of building something, and feel like you don't have a legacy. And I think that on the highest level with spirit, and when I think about like the great goddess, who you might call the great mother, who I often associate with the darkness, as well as I guess with death, but a little bit different, but with darkness at her highest form, or I guess just the most, I don't know, like her most powerful, the most intangible, but yet very, I don't know, just darkness at her most impactful yet kind of intangible form. I feel like she struggles to find meaning in herself without the creation of light and the creation of life. She's always creating to get away from herself, right? Because darkness, I also tend to connect with nothingness in terms of the physical aspect of that. In the darkness, when we can't see, it's almost like you remove the most grounded form of the physical, or the most tangible form of the physical, which is to literally be able to see that something is there and confirm that, and instead you get into the illusions and the into like, I don't know, camouflage and imaginings and things like that, dream states, and things obviously can physically exist in the dark, but it becomes complicated, right? And I think that darkness is trying to uncomplicate herself by continuing to create and almost trying to get rid of herself. It feels like self-harm that comes from a lack of self-love, because there's no one to confirm to darkness that she's okay, just existing as she is, and there's nothing, it's always like, if you want to grow if you're in the dark, it's because you need to end up creating something. You need to be evolving, you need to be growing and evolving into something new and creating more light out of your darkness. And it's always like this extension, this expansion place, and darkness is never really like a final destination. It's more so like this pit stop, like the hermit, or like the hanged man, where you're in the dark just to fulfill a certain purpose and get a certain way. 1 second. Okay, I'm back. There was this man standing in front of the bushes and he was freaking me out, so I had to stop. But anyways, so like I was saying, I think that the reason why women, or people who are heavily in their divine feminine energy, tend to bear a lot of the weight when it comes to creation, and a lot of the traumatic weight when it comes to creation and life in general, and we see that reflected through people who experience pregnancy and labor and raising children, animals who do the same thing, and a lot of the work is left to them, emotional intimacy and intelligence and making relationships work, and what happens when relationships don't work, what happens to women, the violence that tends to occur, gender-based violence, just a lot of examples I think that we could find. And that is not to say that men and people who are heavily in their masculine energy do not experience trauma and do not experience holding a lot of weight. I'm just telling you what I've felt and what I've been noticing as I've been watching a lot of nature documentaries, because I randomly have been watching a lot. So yeah, but anyways, So I'm sorry, I'm sweating. It's really, really hot, but I like to be outside, so I'm trying to just bear it. But yeah, so I was saying that I feel like it's this way because of our highest ancestor, which I consider darkness to be one of our ancestors. And I think that darkness and her divine feminine energy, so I think that she holds a lot of divine feminine energy, doesn't see herself as valuable and does not see herself as enough, because she has often been told through kind of by her children, because I guess we all create ideas and then we create these pillars in the universe. And so I think one of the pillars that she's learned, because you can define yourself, but how you are defined by others also begins to be your definition, right? Like how you see yourself is not always what your legacy will be. It's often how others interpret you, how others tell your story. And in telling the story of darkness, we tell the story of nothingness a lot. And not nothingness in an empowering way, but more so in a bleak, kind of deserted way, in a way that is in need of nourishing creation of life to make it full, to make it have weight, impact in a good way, in a way that is revitalizing, and for the betterment of all. Like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, there's this understanding that there's no life within darkness, which is not true. It's not true, obviously. But at that highest form, even just darkness as an energy and her entity and how she moves through the world and how she has created so much, along with this energy of nothingness and this energy of death, which leads to rebirth and reincarnation, all of these things. It's always like, there's never a finality, and it's never enough on its own. Darkness is never enough on its own. Nothingness is never enough on its own. Death is never enough on its own. Divine feminine energy, to me, feels like, as we can see in examples of the way that the world works, it's not enough on its own. And I think it goes beyond just like the big societal concepts that we have. I think it's very clear in the physical, because who takes on the most traumatic physical weight when it comes to being alive and furthering life? It's women, or people who bear children, animals who bear children, creatures who bear children, and it's the earth, which we associate with divine feminine. So I think you understand, I'm trying to explain that this isn't just like sexism and things like that. This is literally like, what is the physical truth in our reality, and how are we oppressed in those ways? And I think that it's natural, and I think it's a beautiful gift to be able to create life and all of these things like that. But to say that there's no trauma attached to it would be ridiculous, and especially considering like what is expected and the standards are, versus like how you are taken care of in relation to what you do. It makes no sense, right? Like, my sister is pregnant right now, and seeing what she's going through, and just the way that pregnant people are not, in my opinion, treated with the amount of care that they need to be treated with, and neither are mothers postpartum, nor are they as they continue to raise their children as their body heals. It's just like a lot on them with like no support. And I feel like we see the same thing in nature. Like like an animal will give birth and then will begin to care for the child, and like, is there healing time? Is there and we say that that's just nature, and yeah, that is just nature. But why is it like that? Well, I think that there are foundational pillars that we have created, and so you evolve a certain way based on the understandings of the way that things are or should be. And with darkness being our greatest ancestor, and her perception of herself being that she's not enough on her own, she continues to work and create and create and create and traumatize and erase herself, to produce life and to produce light, in order to give herself meaning and definition. And that's where so much of her weight is. And I think that might be one of the reasons why, there's so much suffering associated with, I keep saying these things, there can be so much suffering and trauma associated with creation, and also beauty, also like incredible experiences. I want to be a mother. I want to go through pregnancy, and I want to give birth, and I want to raise my children. So it's not that I'm not appreciative of that. I just think if we're going to be doing this, then we also need to have the systems to take care of each other, and we don't have that. And it's not fair. And I don't think that it should be this way. I do think that it takes a village, and while one person may be the one holding the child, the whole process of creating life needs to be a community process, because that is what it is. And I was talking about darkness, and it's kind of seen as this big like one thing, and like complex, but like one entity. But I believe that all life is a community experience. And so like me, I see myself, and myself as my whole self is Zanale. But I also, in my own existence, and I believe that I am a community of souls. So like I believe that my body is its own soul, and my soul is my soul. So my soul body, my body soul, my heart is its own, I believe that my mind is its own, and it comes together to form me. I believe that every experience is a community experience, if that makes sense. And you can have it be as complex as you want it to be, and as, playing with illusions and things like that. And it doesn't really have to make sense, but I really do think that nothing is done alone. So darkness is not like a soul entity. Darkness is a community of souls. It's a community that makes up the dark. But I don't know, it's like, if no one can see you, are you really there? Like, what's that saying? If a tree falls in the forest but no one hears it, did it really fall? Something like that. Like, these things exist, but without that validation or that confirmation, which you need from others, which is why, we are not solitary creatures. We need each other, and we are all reflections of, our ancestors and things like that. So we are reflections of darkness. Darkness needs light. Light confirms darkness. Darkness confirms light. But darkness also, I don't know, it's almost like, darkness was once the world, and now darkness is like a burden, or this thing to be cleaned out, right? I tried to do this. I had this plan on doing this study of the Bible, trying to find the great goddess in the Bible, because she's been erased so heavily. And I only got 2 chapters because I just could not read it. It wasn't giving for me. But I did find the great goddess in the first 2 chapters, and I found her specifically through darkness in the first chapter in the creation story, where it talks about God's talking about the world, and before God created anything, the world already existed. That's what it said, and it was covered in darkness and water. And I was like, there's the great goddess. That's the great goddess. And so, and you'll see today, there's this conversation about embracing, integrating the shadow, embracing your darkness. But ultimately, the conversation is that you want to reach light. You want to reach your highest self. You want to reach, all of these things that are kind of, you're including the darkness, but darkness does not get to lead. And that's because there's something insufficient about darkness. One second. And that understanding, I think, is very detrimental to us all, to darkness, to women, to anybody, to everyone, to everything. And I understand why it comes from a certain place, but that's also why I think that there's a real need to reframe our language, and also work on connecting more deeply with the spiritual world from a place of empowerment and not from a place of subservience, understanding that we are equal participants in the spiritual world, so that we can begin to have a conversation about justice and equality or equity, or I believe I shared like some of the writings that I had from those 2 weeks where I was getting a lot of messages, and I spoke about how the spirit world needs to go on trial or really just that the spirit world needs to do a better job of taking care of souls, of incarnating souls. Like, you know, how are we caring for each other post-incarnation, pre-incarnation? Why do we forget our previous lives, you know, but still have the karma attached to it? That doesn't seem fair. And like, who are these, like, what is lower vibration? Why is it considered lower vibration, lower vibrational? Why are certain energies considered low vibration? And like, what is a lower entity? Like, all of those questions I've been having, and talking about how lower entities might just be like souls that didn't make it through ascension processes, because ascension is something that it seems like every incarnating thing, every being is working towards. Every soul seems to be working towards ascending, and it seems, but it's not an easy process, because I think that I am going through like an awakening, I don't know, an ascension, something. It's hard though. It's hard, and it's lonely, and it's confusing, and I can absolutely see how it's not something that everyone would make it through. And so what happens to those souls? Because like, you just, like, I guess you reincarnate, you rebirth, you reincarnate, blah, blah, blah. But like, all that trauma, that's a lot, and it adds up. And they say that your soul, you know, decides what they want to do before they come into life, and you make a plan with your soul team, and you want to learn these lessons and all of these things, and that all makes a lot of sense. But I don't know, I can't help but feel like, because, so this is what I was saying with like existences being a communal experience. So take me, for example. So I'm me, and then once I die, I will become an ancestor to my family, and then I'm also going to be a soul going on to another incarnation, or maybe not. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I do believe in reincarnation. So if I were to reincarnate again, I would be me, like this version of me, and this version of me would become an ancestor. Then my soul would be off and go and do another life and be a new person who would become their own ancestor, their own history. Yes, we share the same soul, but we are not the same. Because I don't believe that you can just pretend like, not pretend like, but even if you were, say, this person in a past life, you were not them, your soul was them, and you don't have ownership over their life. You may have memories and things like that, but they are independent from you, and I think that that's important to recognize, the autonomy of each lived experience, whether you have the same soul or not. It's just like with a twin flame. Like, if that's your twin flame, that's still their own life, and they still get to make their own decisions, even though you share a soul. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean with like the communal experience. So you, as this essence, become an ancestor when you die. Then your soul goes on and lives another life. Your body goes into the earth, does whatever, and begins to have a new life in a different way, through the animals that eat them, through the creatures that eat them, through the way that it breaks down and goes into the earth again. It becomes one with Mother Earth. So there's all these different lives that you're having, all at once, right? As an incarnating being, once you pass on. And death is that's like the way that death is such an expressive and expansive process, because you're you're going into all of these different lives, and that explains the whole idea that you are a community of souls and experiences. 1 minute, I have like a runny nose. I mean, oh my God. Yeah, to be honest, I don't remember where I was going with all of this. Spirit, oh right. So, but incarnating is a traumatic experience. So I don't believe that ancestors are taken care of as well as they should be. And ancestors are the most closely connected form to like an incarnating being. When you're actually in your incarnation on whatever planet you're on, an ancestor is closely connected to that experience, and they're closely connected to death. And so they understand existence and the soul world mixed with the incarnating world in a very interesting way. And I also believe that they're neglected when it comes to the trauma. And I feel that way because I'm not understanding why there's so much like generational trauma that so many of us are experiencing, and that our ancestors still feel heavily. There should be systems in the spirit world that, like, there should be healing systems, there should be healing sanctuaries, and I'm not sure that there are, in the way that like incarnating beings and beings who have incarnated, so ancestors, need it, you know. And then there's also like a lot of divisions of yourself, because, and I've also heard that like you can be incarnating and then also be guiding another being incarnating while you're in the spirit world. You're doing a lot. We're doing a lot all the time, and I think that it is a manifestation of this feeling that we need to create and produce and work and work and work in order to have meaning and have value, and the idea that expansion, you know, gives us purpose. 1 second. Hello. Okay, yeah. So I just feel as though there's not enough systems taking care of people in the spirit world. Yeah, we're doing a lot all at once. I've been getting messages around soul retrieval being really important for